We're talking Rolex, AP, Vacheron, Swatch Group, pricing, inventory, scandals, and more. Before we dive in, remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got watch market updates, breaking news, collector interviews, and tons of other good stuff you're going to want to check out. Let's talk Rolex. It's almost useless trying to predict what new watches Rolex will come up with in 2024. I mean, who could have guessed they'd release a day-date with not only puzzle pieces on the dial, but also emojis and emotions too? Riskier design choices like the Celebration dial and the Palm dial have been well received by watch enthusiasts, so we could certainly see more of these creative options in the future, particularly throughout the Datejust and Oyster Perpetual lines. Now, in last year's video, I did correctly guess that the Milgauss would finally be discontinued, but that was bound to happen sooner or later. My other Rolex predictions have not yet come true, but hey, maybe this is the year we get the Explorer 1 in full gold or with a polar dial. Here's one prediction that I am feeling fairly confident in. Rolex will add to its new Perpetual collection with a 1908 follow-up. This could be a new dial or case variation for the 1908, or less likely we could see an all-new dress watch emerge. The Perpetual collection feels like a whole new market angle for Rolex, and it made sense that they'd want to keep up the momentum here. Some of the biggest news of this year is that Rolex is, or rather will be, expanding their production facilities in Switzerland. 3 temporary production spaces will start rolling out watches in 2025, and the new permanent factory will be operational in 2029. So for the next year, it's going to look similar in terms of supply and demand. And after that, the question remains if the increased supply can satisfy the still sky-high demand for Rolex watches. Let's say by the end of the decade, they double production from roughly 1 million watches to 2 million watches per year. How many tens of millions of people want to buy Rolex every year? And realistically, how many of these watches end up in boutiques versus on the gray market? In terms of Rolex pricing, you know the saying, what goes up must come down, but also what goes down doesn't stay down forever. Using Chrono24 sales data, now available through the new Chronopulse tool, we can see Rolex sales prices starting to level out on the platform. A handful of models are already seeing month-over-month gains as well. For a more detailed look, check out that Chronopulse tool for daily updates. Let's quickly discuss 2 things we may see this year from Vacheron Constantin. Or if you're Swiss, Vacheron Constantin. First, the brand has been steadily expanding their lineup of watches featuring retrograde displays, and they may squeeze that lemon a little bit more in 2024. This could be as simple as expanding the retrograde overseas into a new case material. The second and last thing, and perhaps this is more of a wish than a prediction, is that this is the year we'll see a steel 222. The gold 222 was the star of the show at Watches and Wonders 2 years ago, but that was, 2 years ago. Next, it's almost guaranteed that we'll see another Swatch collaboration in 2024. These collaborations are like Swatch's version of the Fast and the Furious franchise, and we're only on the second movie. We successfully predicted the 50 Fathoms collaboration this time last year, but that was the obvious choice. Now it's tougher. There are a few theories floating around as to what the next watch will be. Some say another chronograph, perhaps using that moon swatch movement. Some say it will be a Breguet collaboration, maybe a Type 20 or a more traditional dress watch. I'd love a Daniel Roth era Breguet Perpetual calendar, but that's just me. Others think they'll move on to a new watch category. This could be a dress watch, or perhaps a GMT would round out the collection nicely. But the issue is that the Swatch Group has a finite amount of luxury brands with iconic models. For example, it doesn't make sense to make a cheap version of an already affordable watch from Hamilton, Certina, Rado, Mito, Tissot, or Longines. And the remaining luxury brands in their portfolio don't have the icons that Omega or Blancpain do. Brands like Jacques Dro, Union Glasuta Original make great watches, but they don't generate enough buzz to get people lining up outside Swatch stores. Maybe they'll swing back to an Omega collaboration, but that feels too soon. And if they did, they'd likely do the Seamaster, which is another diver, which also feels too soon. So, will we see a new Swatch collaboration? Yes. What will it be? Your guess is as good as mine. And if you do have a guess, drop a comment below. Now, the micro brand space is where I think the most exciting stuff is gonna happen in 2024. Smaller brands have long served as laboratories for experimentation, and we should be in for a few pleasant surprises in 2024. For example, Furlan Mari and Baltic both made Perpetual calendars for only watch Mari made a secular QB to be specific, and it's hard to believe that a small brand is going to spend that much on R&D just to make one watch. If you look at Ming's brand journey for comparison, they started with simple, affordable pieces and have since moved to complication watches worth 20K or 30K. And I see a similar path ahead for Baltic, Mari, or both. Now that begs the question, when does a micro brand start to be considered an independent brand? Where's the line there? But that's a topic for another video. Touching quickly on case materials, 2023 was the year for titanium watches, and that will likely continue to trickle into 2024. Steel is king overall, and gold will always have its place in the market, but this year alone, we've seen new titanium watches from Rolex, Chopard, Ming, Omega, Urwerk, IWC, Girard-Perregaux Saint Laurent, Tudor, Longines, Porsche Design, and Oris. I'm sure I missed a few as well. I suspect Rolex and Tudor in particular will continue to embrace this lightweight metal for their upcoming watches. Let's talk about Audemars Piguet. First, please stop making the Marvel watches with Black Panther, Spider-Man, and all that. This isn't a prediction, this is a plea for sanity. You are better than that, AP. AP actually just released their collaboration with rapper Travis Scott. It's pretty cool, but man, they are really taking the hype watch category literally. We will of course be getting new Royal Oak watches this year, but I'm willing to bet we'll see more non-Royal Oak watches as well. Audemars Piguet has a new CEO starting January 1st, and we have to assume that one of the brand's long-term goals is to be less dependent on a single model. With that in mind, the 1159 seems like the easiest place to expand. The star wheel in the 1159 case that debuted around this time last year was kind of cool. And the other 1159 watches that came out at the beginning of 2023 aren't bad either. So the collection is getting better, and AP has other non-Royal Oak watches in their archives, and reinterpreting one of these in a 1159 case could be just risky enough and just safe enough to work. Maybe it's a moon phase calendar complication, maybe it's a dual time, maybe it's something like the Open Word Jewels Audemars chronometer. Now the actual chances of this happening in the coming year are low. Changing the direction of a brand like AP is like steering a cruise ship. It takes time. But it makes sense that it could happen, so we'll see. Let's wrap this up with a quick rundown of some general industry predictions. We're talking more vintage brand revivals, more LVMH presence, more SKUs, and more scandals. LVMH relaunched Daniel Roth, which created some complicated feelings for fans of the brand. We've seen similar revivals in recent years where people have purchased the rights to defunct brands like Benris or Aquastar and brought them back to life. It's unlikely, but we could see more excavations like this in the year ahead. I mean, Universal Genève has to come back eventually, right? Speaking of LVMH, Louis Vuitton had a big year in 2023 with the launch of the new Tambour, list price $19,000, and their collaboration with Recep Redzepi, list price much more than that. We'll continue to see the presence of Louis V and LVMH in general grow larger over time. The conglomerate is investing more and more into the watch industry, and that will continue to shift the landscape. If money talks, LVMH is screaming. In terms of more SKUs, this is pretty self-explanatory, but we've seen a trend for larger selections of case sizes and dial colors in the last couple of years. As long as this makes financial sense for the brand, I expect this to continue, and it's more convenient for consumers as well. Not to get too spicy, but we'll likely have more scandals hit the industry in the year ahead. There's been increased scrutiny of the major auction houses lately, and Only Watch is currently embroiled in some accounting troubles, to put it gently. AP was the largest domino to fall in the Only Watch unraveling, and in hindsight, it was lucky that Patek Philippe chose to essentially withhold from participating in Only Watch this year. Sorry to end on a negative note, but hey, there's a lot to look forward to in the year ahead. What's your prediction for the watch world in 2024? Drop a comment below so you can say, I told you so, this time next year. I'm Thomas Hendricks of Chrono 24 in New York City. Thanks for watching and Happy New Year.